Well, hello and welcome to the Central Stevens Library here in downtown San Angelo, Texas. I'm Manny Diaz, alongside the partner in crime, Mr. Yantis Green. This is the 2022 Tom Green County Republican primary candidate runoff.
The runoff election, yes.
So we are nearing the runoff election of this. This has been a crazy candidate campaign season, so we are now entering the latter stages of this and the runoff portions of this. So we are bringing three races in here tonight. This is the Tom Green County Justice of the Peace Precinct 3, Tom Green County Commissioner Precinct 4, and of course the big race. This is for Tom Green County Judge.
Yeah.
And so we're going to see all six of these candidates here tonight. Yantis Green, it is always good to have you, sir, because you are just so good and articulate when it comes to this. Yantis, thoughts heading into tonight?
Well, we hope. Thank you, Manny, for introducing us. And what we hope we have tonight is a more relaxed format, so that these candidates can really interact maybe a little bit and be themselves. They go to so many of these forums and answer the same questions over and over again in the same manner, and it gets a little monotonous. And what we're going to do is sit down with the Justice of the Peace candidates first. They normally get last billing, and we're going to spend about 20 minutes talking to them, letting them talk about what's facing the Justice of the Peace office, and then we'll go to the commissioners, and we'll talk about, spend about 30 minutes with them, and then finally we'll wrap up with the county judge candidates and talk to them for about 40 minutes. So
this is built like kind of a true fight card here.
It really is.
We have the fights, so to speak. I know nobody's fighting here tonight, but that's the way it's built tonight to get to the main event, so to speak, with the county judges.
And I've said before that politics is a contact sport, and these candidates are here to earn votes, and they need every vote they can get, because voter turnout in a primary election runoff is going to be extremely low, even in Tom Green County, even with 3 races here and with statewide races. There's a lot on the ballot, but we've also got some confusion because there's an election going on right now, a constitutional amendment election. So you've got all that combined to confuse voters, and we're going to try to clear up some of that tonight. Yeah.
Well, unlike previous forums, you are the moderator. You're not somewhat. You are the moderator tonight. This is what's different about this, and this is non-traditional, so to speak.
Exactly.
Which is, I mean, that's San Angelo Live's forte when you really think about it.
We really try to do things uniquely and look at opportunities like this and the way things have been done, and we try to be to communicate more clearly and allow these candidates as much time as we can to let them speak. And as far as being a moderator, that's not something I do. There's not much that's very moderate about me. I'm pretty conservative, and all of these candidates are running in the Republican Party, and that's the conservative party. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. Well, tonight we're going to see 3 race candidates from 3 particular races from the JP3. We're seeing Stacye Speck with our other candidate
with
Ron Perry tonight, representing Justice of the Peace Precinct 3. Then the County Commissioner Precinct 4, Mr. Bill Ford and Shawn Nanny, and then wrapping it up with the Tom Green County Judge candidates. Drawing a blank, my goodness, why is this happening?
The judge candidates would be Lane Carter
and Todd Coles. My goodness, tonight that's just, hopefully this doesn't spill over to them tonight.
And imagine being a voter. I mean, I know this stuff, and we talk to these guys on a regular basis, and as a voter, deciding who's running for what and who's on first. They were talking earlier, and it's no big secret that voters come up to the candidates now and say, well, I thought you already ran, and I thought you already won, and that was the March 1st primary. Well, they made it to the runoff May 24th, and they've got another election after that, which is in November. Now, most of these folks won't have an opponent then, but that's the big election, or would be, in November.
Right. We're about 9 or so minutes, 8 to 9 minutes away from kickoff tonight. Here, right at the Central Stevens Library, our very own Yantis Green will be moderating this. Yantis, we talked a little bit about how this is somewhat of a non-traditional format. I know I don't want to get your questions, but is there anything particular that you're kind of trying to maybe get out of these candidates in an effort to maybe better inform the constituents, the voters out there?
Well, these are 4-year terms, and typically voters will see these folks, justices of the peace, county commissioners, and county judges, will be in office for a long time. So what I'm trying to showcase, what we hope comes out tonight in these discussions is their personalities. Who are you going to be dealing with for the next 4, 8, 12 years? And that's very important. It's been 28 years since we had an actual open seat for county judge.
Wow. Okay.
Mike Brown won and served for 16 years, and then Steve Floyd was appointed and won and is serving to this day, I think about at least 12. So there's 28 years of continuity at the county judge seat. So this is wide open, this is new, this is important for the vision and direction of Tom Green County, and we need to see the human side of these folks and not just how well they answer questions.
Now, of course, with this county commissioner race, I mean, we had as many as 6 candidates in this. Now we're down to 2. How crucial is this particular race? Just because we saw so many of these candidates, so many people put their name in the hat, wanting to become the next county commissioner of Precinct 4.
Well, you will hear this probably more than me tonight, that we have the best system in the world for electing our representatives, and anyone can run for office, almost anyone. And what we had was people who were passionate about Precinct 4, passionate about Tom Green County, and who really had serious issues on their mind, serious enough that they wanted to run for office. And we have an incumbent in Bill Ford in Precinct 4 as the commissioner. He's been there for at least 10 years, and he's running again. He made the runoff. And tonight we'll have him and Shawn, Nanny. Both those guys made the runoff. They both come at this from different directions, and we'll see how that shakes out.
Now, of course, in the other race, and the race that we're going to involve regarding Precinct 3, Justice of the Peace, between Mr. Ron Perry and Stacye Speck. Now, this particular, race back in March, I mean, we'll just say it. I think Ron Perry was the dark horse. Nobody really expected to see him get to this point, and he actually drew more votes than Stacye Speck in that particular race back in March. But I don't think he's wanting to just settle for second best at this point.
I don't think any of them are. But I will say that Ron has been working hard for a long time for this. Stacye has worked hard as well. They are articulate. They are passionate.
Very much so.
And Precinct 3 is growing, and it's unique in that it has Grape Creek and Water Valley and Carlsbad, and the Buffalo Heights addition is just exploding. And then you've got Highland Range out there, and it kind of skirts around to Quail Valley as well, but and it's the one with the most rural population. Precinct 3 is, but there's still a lot of the population, a lot of the voters inside the city limits of San Angelo. It's going to be an interesting race, and they kind of get bottom billing in these candidate forums, and that's why I wanted to start with them first.
Right. Well, and I think, probably one of the people that's working very hard, nothing against Stacye Speck, but Ron Perry, probably one of the hardest working candidates out there. Stacye Speck, of course, she has so much experience involving the judicial system and law enforcement, so both are very much worthy candidates, if you ask me.
Oh, man, I would hate to be running against either one of them.
Yeah.
I tell you, they work hard, they knock on doors, they're well-spoken, they're very passionate. They want this. They both want this job really, really bad, and they're here tonight to convince any undecided voters or decided voters to switch to their side.
Now, we've heard a lot from the particular from forums of the past. Certainly, the most recent one, which was prior to the March 1 Tuesday, Super Tuesday there, and we heard a lot of angles of economic development.
Right.
I'm not sure where economic development fits in with the Tom Green County judge. Do you have any intentions of perhaps pushing that particular angle, that particular question?
I have not even considered asking an economic development question because that's not statutorily what counties do. Mm-hmm. They have one tool and one tool only as far as economic development goes, and that is tax abatements. We might briefly touch on that, but that's not what counties do. Counties are in the business of criminal justice and taking care of the official records of what goes on and assessing taxes. So that's what counties do.
Well, that's an interesting thing, and we heard so much of that from so many different forums because we covered. It's like we were the circuit of forums back through February, throughout the month of February with that.
We have done this for a long time, and I think we're doing a service to the voters. I really hope we are, and they deserve it. Mm-hmm. The voters will get this right. I trust the voters of Tom Green County, but they need to have all the information they can get, and we're trying to get that out to them.
Definitely. Well, and of course, you can find all of this only on SanAngeloLive.com. Now, Yanis, you put out also a questionnaire.
We did.
To all of these candidates. Tell us a little bit more about that and when we can maybe see some of the answers to these particular questions.
I was so grateful that we had a lot of people. I asked for questions for the candidates, and we got a lot of questions into the office, and I compiled those, got those to the candidates, and every candidate has filled out those questionnaires, answered every question completely. We appreciate that, and we're going to publish those this weekend, Saturday, Sunday. We've got those 6 questionnaires ready to go. There's 12 questions on each one. So that is another in-depth, really good read that you'll get on San Angelo Live and only on San Angelo Live this time.
Absolutely. We're bringing it to you, SanAngeloLive.com. All the goods here tonight. Yantis Green, joined by Yantis Green here. We are at 5:58. It's 2 minutes until kickoff here. So we're going to go ahead and, Yantis, we'll go ahead and bid farewell to you here. You've got some work to do up there from the moderator's desk. It's a little bit different. So we'll let you get ready for that. T-minus 2 minutes at that point. So there we are. Yantis Green as he exits and makes his way to the moderator's desk. 2 minutes, and actually 1 minute until we hit kickoff time, so to speak, here from the Central Stevens Library in downtown San Angelo. This is the 2022 Tom Green County Republican Primary Runoff, proudly presented by SanAngeloLive.com. This is an interesting type of forum, primarily because this is involving 3 of these races, 6 candidates, and early voting begins on May the 16th, so that's a lot will be decided come that day in May. Alrighty, so it looks like we are getting ready to go to the podium there here in the top, the second floor of the Central Stevens Library. Matt, are we ready to go? Okay, well, let's go up to the podium where we will be joined by Miss Stacye King.
Good evening. My name is Stacye King, and I'm with San Angelo Live, and welcome. We're glad to have you this evening at this forum. This is an opportunity. I know there have been a lot of forums for the candidates, and I know the families and the candidates are tired, but you're almost there. You're almost there. But this is an opportunity. We wanted to offer this to the candidates. This is a little more intimate setting, a little more relaxed. This is a conversation with the candidates. So we hope you enjoy. But before we get started, I want to say thank you to a couple of people. Of course, to San Angelo Live for live streaming this. If you have not checked us out online, SanAngeloLive.com, and check us out and like our Facebook page. And also to Amy Dennis and the staff at the Tom Green County Public Library. They have been extremely accommodating, and we're glad to have this wonderful room this evening. And finally, thank you to all the candidates that have agreed to participate in this forum. We are so glad that you are able to be here, and thank you for sacrificing your time away from your lives to be here with us. We think it's important for our voters, and we just appreciate you being here. Now, I have the distinct honor of introducing our moderator for the evening, a man that really needs no introduction, Mr. Yantis Green.
Thank you, Stacye, and thank you all for being here. Thank you, San Angelo Live and the audience out there. This is going to be as casual as we can make it. And we're hopefully to have a conversation with these candidates. We're going to take 20 minutes to begin with the Justice of the Peace candidates. They're going to start in just a second, and then we'll have a break. And then we're going to go 30 minutes with the Commissioner Precinct 4 candidates and take another break. And then we will sit down with the county judge candidates for about 40 minutes. So there'll just be 3 of us up here to start with. I hope that we can begin a conversation and have a 3-way conversation without having the same old questions that they've answered 100 times before. My goal is you got to love these guys and these gals. Their personalities, I hope, will really shine through tonight. They're fantastic folks. The sacrifices that they've made to run for office are really amazing, and their families too. We're glad that they're all here. We were hoping this would be a little bit closer to early voting, but that's the way the calendar works. This is the day we got the room. So we're here, and we welcome all the candidates. We're grateful that they're here, and we'll go ahead and get them up here now. Our candidates for Justice of the Peace in Precinct 3, Tom Green County, Stacye Speck. Come on up, Stacye. Thank you for being here. And Ron Perry. Ron, thank you for coming. Each of you have a microphone, and maybe you'll do a better job with it than me. But what we want to do is give you about a minute. I know you have a 3-minute introduction memorized, and if you want to stand up, stand up. If you want to have a seat, have a seat. I'm going to be seated most of the evening. So let's keep this just as relaxed as we can. And I think we will start with Ron. Ron, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself. Take about a minute.
Well, thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and voters of Precinct 3 for inviting us to tell our story here so that we can get it out and let you be an informed voter. I want to thank those of you that voted, because there are a lot of people who have given their lives so that we have the privilege to vote in this country freely. My name is Ron Perry. I was born in San Angelo in 1945, June the 7th, 1945, a day and a year after the invasion of Normandy. I have given my life to service to San Angelo and to Tom Green County. I started my career in radio, an old station called KPEP, a long time ago. And then I went to Angelo State University, which was called San Angelo College at the time. I met my lovely bride, Vivian, back in the back there. She's been my best supporter. You want to come up here where you can sit on the front row and get a good picture of us working here, you're more than welcome to come up here on the front. I joined the Air Force in 1966. I got tired of watching people run and go to Canada to not serve our country. And I told my father, I said, I'm going to sign up, and I don't care which one. Went to the Marine recruiter. They were out to lunch, and so was the Navy. The Air Force was the only recruiter there, and he said, step right in. He promised me the world, and that was what I saw. I came back to San Angelo in 1970, worked for the first FM radio station in San Angelo, KWLW, and finally got on the fire department within 6 months of coming home. I spent 29 years working for you, the citizens of San Angelo and Tom Green County in the fire department. Every promotion that I got was through a competitive examination, of which I, most of the time, made 100 percentile in the tests. I spent my last few years as assistant fire chief, and I was in charge of purchasing, writing up specifications for fire trucks that cost $450,000 apiece. After that, I decided to retire, went to work the next day for Texas A&M University System. I spent 10 years with them as the first regional fire coordinator west of I-35. My territory covered from 277 to El Paso, a little bit of Texas. And I managed the budget in that department. After the Forest Service, I was asked by some folks in San Angelo to come apply for the emergency manager's position, and that I did. I worked for Mr. Harold Dominguez, a great person to work for. He told me one good rule to follow: if it doesn't smell right, don't touch it. And I haven't. And I developed the first emergency management department in San Angelo that was going to help you in all of the different disasters that we've had in San Angelo. I thank you.
All right, thank you, Ron. Stacye Speck, you have as much time as you want to introduce yourself. Go right ahead.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Stacye Speck, your Republican candidate. I thought it was on. Now it's on. Hello, I'm Stacye Speck, your Republican candidate for Justice of the Peace of Precinct 3. I'll keep it short and sweet for you. I have lived in San Angelo, Texas since 1991. I graduated high school in Andrews, Texas, and I came to San Angelo to attend ASU. I started working for the Sheriff's Office in 1994 as a jailer, and I remained there, promoted to jail sergeant, and then I transferred to the patrol side in 2000. Once at the patrol side, I became a patrolman, a patrol corporal, a patrol sergeant, and I've spent the last 9 years as the patrol lieutenant over the division. So what makes me the best qualified candidate for the job is I have experience in criminal law, civil law, I have applied the law, I've practiced with the law, and I've supervised all the patrolmen that go out and enforce the law. And I have enforced the law for over 22 years. I'm experienced with warrants, citations, writs, and affidavits. I believe that it is imperative that you have a JP that knows the law. It is not a requirement that a JP is in law enforcement. But why would you want a JP that it has the minimum qualifications to do the job? I have more than the minimum qualifications. I believe that I am the most qualified to do this job. I've been endorsed by an association that enforces the law, the San Angelo Police Officers PAC, along with an association that utilizes all 4 JP offices, the San Angelo Realtors Associations. And I have a lot of people that believe in me and will stand beside me. I'm asking for your vote on May 24th for the next Justice of the Peace of Precinct 3. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm Stacye Speck. Thank you.
All right, here we go. Now, just sometimes we gloss over the fact that there are 4 precincts in each county in Texas, and Precinct 3 encompasses the northwest corner of San Angelo and includes Grape Creek and Water Valley and Carlsbad and a little bit of Quail Valley, and it swings around and catches that Buffalo Heights, which is growing like there's no tomorrow, and also Highland Range, I think. It encompasses Highland Range. It is probably the precinct in Tom Green County that has the most rural residents, people who live outside the city of San Angelo. So it is very unique and rural. And when you think about Justice of the Peace, maybe you think of Roy Bean and the law west of the Pecos, and that's exactly what it was. When Texas was a very young state, somebody had to be in charge of law enforcement and had to take care of the judicial end of law. And so the Justices of the Peace, the office, came into being. And through time, that has evolved into most counties. Most of the 254 counties have one Justice of the Peace for each precinct, unless you get into larger counties, and then they have actually more. Our Justice of the Peace courts just have one, and you have a constable who works as the bailiff of the court. And you talk about growing, those guys are growing. They're full-time bailiffs.
That's right.
And full-time constables. And now I think everybody, all four of them have a full-time deputy constable, unless two of them have a full-time. See, I'm learning something. Well, let's talk about the court. What happens daily for a justice of the peace? You want to take that one, Ron?
Well, I certainly will. And that depends on what the agenda is for that day, as far as what comes up as far as traffic tickets, overweight tickets, and things of that nature. And we have the going out for the death calls in the middle of the night. Someone asked me the other day, said, do you realize you'll have to get up in the middle of the night and respond to someone's passing? And I said, what do you think I've done for 29 years in San Angelo and Tom Green County, riding ambulances and working in emergency management? But there's all different things, and it's not the same thing every day. It's different. And the justice of the peace depends on the staff that he has or she has working in that office to put the court agenda together.
All right. Stacye, same question. A day in the life of a justice of the peace, what do you envision that to be like?
Well, first of all, they have to do arraignments on the people that are arrested. They have 48 hours to do arraignments. They also have a court docket that they have to have. So it's not all about citations. They only have court on citations whenever that's due, and they'll know whenever they have court on that. So the main focus is on arraignments on that day. They have 48 hours to get that done. They also have court.
So the justice of the peace actually goes to the jail?
They can, yes, and they also do it by Zoom.
Okay, so we're using technology. But each one of those folks who is incarcerated, arrested, and winds up in the county jail has to be arraigned within 48 hours.
Yes, sir.
And justices of the peace do that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What else do justices of the peace do? What do you want to talk about?
Well, a lot of people are misinformed on the justice of the peace and believe that they are just for inquest and they're just for, pronouncing people dead, or they're just for marrying people. And what I want people to realize is that the justice of the peace is such an important county official, and it's really downplayed. It is the people's court. It is the first person that people usually get to see whenever they're talking about seeing people in the justice system. Yes, they are, the traffic court for the people. Like, people will think of a municipal court as being the judge for the city. And really and truly, the JP is the judge for the county, for the citizens. They also do property, landlord-tenant evictions. They do writs, writ of attachments. And, it's just so much more than marrying people or pronouncing people dead. They really and truly are people that have to know the law and know civil law. Civil law is a major thing that the justice of the peace do, and it is not something that can just be learned overnight.
Okay. That part of it, Ron, the in the court with the citations and the evictions, that's a big thing, because it seems like that's all the constables do anymore.
That's true.
Is follow eviction orders from the JP.
I was sitting in the court way before the pandemic ever hit, watching and listening and seeing whether I really wanted to do what I'm doing now and running for justice of the peace. And there was eviction after eviction coming through, and that is a big problem, as well as our mental health problems that we have. That state mental health is, kind of used the jails as a holding area for some time, and it's causing a lot of backup and problems as far as our jail population, and that's one of the big problems that we have. We talk about knowing the law, and I have a problem with the qualifications as put forth in the Government Code of Texas, Section 27.005. And it states that the qualifications are you must be a citizen, a resident of Texas for at least 12 consecutive months, be a resident of the precinct, that you must be a registered voter in that precinct. I've been in that precinct for 20 years. I think I'm pretty qualified there, and I'm way over 18 years of age. And why did the legislators pass this sort of thing and put it in the government code as the qualifications? My feeling, and I hope that the voters of Tom Green County Precinct 3 understand that they want the citizen court to rule in this court.
Okay. The Justice of the Peace does not have to be an attorney. You don't have to have a degree in law to be a Justice of the Peace. That's one of the two statutory judges in Texas that's that way. The other's county judge. You do, for the county court at law judges who actually do the same thing that the county judge does, the judicial end of it, they do have to be attorneys to serve in that position. So you guys both tout your experience for this job, and you want it to be, you want the voters to have a civilian judge, and your background's law enforcement. And that's both coming from very different backgrounds. We are, those of us who've been around a little while understand that in this particular race, we are losing two of our very experienced justices of the peace. JP McGuire has already resigned because Tom Daniel was elected in the primary on March 1st, and he's already been sworn in, and hopefully he's at work. So that leaves Susan Werner and Eddie Howard in Precincts 2 and Precinct 4 as the experience on the JP courts. And the reason that's important is because you all cover each other. The justices of the peace work together and work on call to cover those death inquiries and those things 24 hours a day. What's your favorite thing about the Justice of the Peace office?
The favorite thing?
Favorite thing.
I guess the favorite thing would be to be there to assist and help people that need help. And if they need help, they come to the Justice of the Peace for different things. Joe borrows a tractor from Sam, and he never gives it back. Well, if it's less than $20,000, he can bring that in, and we try to take care of that. But I don't know. That's a good question, because I want to serve the public of Tom Green County and the Precinct 3, and I have found that is an excellent way to do that, because they need the JP's assistance in so many things. And I have attended lots of death calls. I have also worked for a funeral home or two, and I know how to handle myself with the family.
Okay. Same thing, Stacye. What is your favorite thing about the Justice of the Peace office? Why do you want to be a Justice of the Peace?
Well, I want to be a Justice of the Peace because for 22 years I've been on the enforcement side of law enforcement. And I've always thought of what do I want to do? What do I continue to want to do with the rest of my life? And I want to utilize my knowledge of the law in law enforcement to continue to help the citizens of Tom Green County. Mr. Perry brought up the mental health side. I'm also a mental health peace officer. I have not mentioned that. It's on some of my flyers that I am a mental health peace officer. So I bring the knowledge of that to the court. But in that position of being a JP, I can help people because I'm fair, I'm unbiased, I can continue to help people, and I bring a strong perspective A lot of people believe that, I bring the cop attitude, but it's not that. What it is that I see both sides of the story, but I know how to continue to help people because I'm honest and I will not lead somebody down the wrong path because I know how to judge something. A judge does not make the law, a judge enforces the law, and I want to continue to be able to help the citizens in that way.
Okay, thanks. We're about at the end of 20 minutes, so what we're going to do now is final thoughts. Ron, final statement, final thoughts. Take as long as you need.
As long as I need, no.
Well, within reason.
Within reason. I'll leave you with one thought, ladies and gentlemen. A justice of the peace must be fair and impartial in every case that comes before the court. Every case, whether it be civil or misdemeanor criminal, must be treated as such. Every case is different and therefore should be treated as such. Every case has different evidence and different things that must be satisfied to the court to make a fair and impartial judgment. On my flyers, there has always been 4 promises that I will make as your Justice of the Peace in Precinct 3. I will be fair. I will be impartial because I have not arrested anyone or thrown anyone in jail. I will be honest, and I will be conservative with your tax dollars. Thank you for coming tonight and allowing Stacye and I to give you our perspectives on the election. Thank you.
Okay, Stacye Speck, you're also running for Justice of the Peace, Precinct 3. Final thoughts.
Should I be elected, I would bring stability to the courts because I intend to serve multiple terms. A new judge has to have 80 hours worth of training, and I am willing to stay as long as the good citizens of Tom Green County will vote me in. I would like everybody to realize that at the end of the day, it's not about who you've known the longest. It's about who is the most qualified and capable person to do the job. I believe I am the most qualified person to do this job for JP3. Sorry.
That's all right. That's okay. We're laid back. We're casual.
I'm asking for your vote on May 24th to be your next Justice of the Peace of Precinct 3. I'm Stacye Speck, and I thank you.
All right. Thank you. Stacye Speck, Ron Perry, we can give them a round of applause. They survived. Thank you, guys, and we're going to take a short break here, and we will introduce the candidates for County Commissioner in just a minute. Thank you, guys.
27 years ago, I began my law enforcement career right here as a jailer. Now, as the patrol lieutenant for the Tom Green County Sheriff's Office, I have made it my mission to serve our community. That's why I'm running for Justice of the Peace, to use my knowledge and my experience of criminal and civil law to serve the people of Precinct 3. You deserve a JP who understands mental health issues, has experience in records, warrants, and affidavits, along with a proven law enforcement career.
Fair justice you can count on. Stacye Speck for Tom Green County Justice of the Peace, Precinct 3.
Well, hello and welcome back to the 2022 Tom Green County Republican Primary Runoff Candidate Forum. I know that's a mouthful. Joined by here, Mr. Joe Hyde, the owner, the legend that is of St. Angelo.
I'm like the Brett Hume of St. Angelo Live now. So don't blame me for anything. Him.
Okay. We'll leave it at that. Joe, we welcome you to the broadcast here. You had a chance to listen. We just had a chance to listen to the Justice of the Peace candidates, Precinct 3, from Mr. Ron Perry, Stacye Speck. Was there anything that kind of popped off the page?
Oh yeah.
Those individuals?
Oh yeah. They're starting to throw a little shade at each other. Mm-hmm. The first thing Ron Perry in his closing statement said, "I'll be fair and impartial because I have never arrested anyone." That was a direct shot at Stacye Speck, who's obviously she's a deputy with the Tom Green County Sheriff's Office, and then Stacye fires back with, "Well, I'm here to give the office more longevity because I tend to serve multiple terms, kind of a I guess a jab at Ron Perry's age. And so, this race was a surprise for all. Ron Perry won it.
We talked. Janice and I touched on that to begin the broadcast.
Yeah, he won it, and Stacye Speck was, of course, favored to do really well. She came in second. I don't know if Stacye, if people were going to judge it off this particular performance, I don't know if Stacye did enough. I mean, I think Ron Perry came on strong.
Very much so. One thing that kind of stood out from both of these candidates that note gathering while directing and doing all this
right.
here, Mr. Perry touched on section 27.005, and that was the qualifications.
Right.
And that stated, you have to be 18 years of age.
Right.
You
right.
don't necessarily have to have a law degree. And and that's like how you said, that's direct shade. It's a direct shot at that because he fits into that particular
right.
realm.
He's a fireman, right? We have a fireman running against a sheriff's deputy. That's basically what we have. And one of the things that really wasn't brought out, and I don't know, when you talk about the qualifications and things for these old county offices, the history behind them. I mean, Yantis kind of touched on it, during the deal, but. One of the things that wasn't really touched on that much was these justices of the peace, they actually have to sign the arrest affidavit. So, for example, if someone comes in and accuses you of assault and files a report with either the county attorney's office or with the sheriff's office, and they write up an arrest affidavit, that law enforcement officer or the law enforcement officer has to take the affidavit to a justice of the peace and get it signed. So they have to make sure that the wording and everything of what they're getting accused of is actually, worth signing their name
right.
to, because that person's going to have his mugshot, taken down at the Tom Green County Detention Center, probably arrested, a little humiliation going on, those kinds of things. So that's one thing that they really didn't talk about on either side, but they have two different perspectives. You have Ron Perry, who has, basically coming in here, I'm a citizen, I love the Constitution, that kind of thing, and you have a law enforcement officer, and that's kind of what Ron Perry was jabbing Stacye at, that she would be more favorable to a law enforcement officer's affidavit, perhaps.
Speaking of those affidavits, that's where us here at San Angelo Live, we get all of the criminal information.
That's right. We don't
make it up. Out of thin air.
You don't make it up.
No, we do not.
Yes.
We do not. One last thing, because I know Yantis is getting ready with the next session here involving the Tom Green County Commissioner Precinct 4 candidates. Stacye touched on, and she brought up a really good question. Why would you want a JP with minimal qualifications? And because she has a lot of law enforcement.
Well, she has the training too, and she has the certification. She's been there. And it's sort of like in Precinct 2 where they elected Tom Daniel to replace the outgoing JP there. She's saying, I am the expert. I'm the law enforcement expert that can replace JP Buck. There's McGuire down in 4. This is on the opposite side of the county, diagonally. And so she'll be replacing Justice of the Peace Buck. But anyway, that's the look. I mean, do you want Ron Perry doing it? You want Stacye Speck, law enforcement experience? She's saying, I have the experience. One more thing. I think the tone of the candidates really shone through a little bit. Stacye's younger. She's more aggressive. Ron's a little laid back, a little less threatening, that kind of thing. And I don't know how the voters will take to that, but I kind of noticed that there was
two different ones.
Two different. So you have up there in Precinct 3, if you live in Grape Creek, Water Valley, or Highland Range.
Yeah.
Those are my peeps. Anyway, I love Highland Range and the Bison area, the Buffalo Heights.
Definitely.
But yeah, you have a big choice.
Absolutely. So early voting begins on May 16th, Election Day, May 25th. Coming up in less than a month. So,
Yeah.
right around a month, nonetheless. All right, so we are getting ready to go back to Yantis Green, back at the podium to introduce the next session number 2, involving the Tom Green County Commissioner Precinct 4 candidates, Mr. Bill Ford and Shawn Nanny. We'll send it back to the podium.
Well, good evening and welcome back. We're going to start the second portion of our program tonight. Sitting next to me are two guys who worked really, really hard to get here. Shawn Nanny is on my left. Shawn is school board president of the Christoval ISD, and Bill Ford is the incumbent commissioner in Precinct 4. We all have a lot in common that you may or may not know about. All three of us have served on a school board. And I can tell you that I lost weight and lost friends. But ultimately, at the end of the day, what mattered was what we did for the kids, and I think that's we can all agree on that. These guys are running for County Commissioner Precinct 4, which is the southwestern quadrant of Tom Green County, and that includes Christoval, Knickerbocker, Dove Creek, Dakota Estates, Bryant Circle, and it includes a big chunk of San Angelo as well, the Santa Rita neighborhood and College Hills, part of College Hills, and part of Southland. So this particular race, we've never seen anything like it. We had 6 candidates to start with, and that almost guaranteed that we would have a runoff. All 6 of them, as I mentioned earlier, were very passionate about issues in Precinct 4. And through the process, I think they worked out those issues, and they learned a lot. And I think every candidate in this race has learned a lot and earned the right to be here. So, if you would join me in welcoming Bill Ford and Shawn Nanny. Now, this is where I get to get on my soapbox for just a minute before we get into questioning and conversation. Counties in Texas were created by the legislature. Tom Green County is basically a grid, part of a grid of the state of Texas, and was created by the legislature, by the state government. School districts and cities were created by the people. Neighbors got together and said, we need something else, something besides what counties are doing. So what counties do is criminal justice. That's primarily why we're here. Criminal justice, you hold elections, take care of roads, and you do very little else. So this conversation, there's so much, it's evolved so much, and you hear, we focused a lot on tax rates, property tax, the increase in property values, and we're really going to get into that in the next segment. But what I would like to do this time, guys, is talk about and is sort of illustrate what the Commissioner's Court does and what being a commissioner is like. And I want to use an example, and that example is Mineral Wells Bridge. Mineral Wells crossing of the South Concho River there at Christoval is not a problem in drought because there's not any water in the river. I had family that lived on back there off of mineral wells and during the drought period mostly, and it was not an issue. But during wet years, the water runs over the bridge and strands folks back there. So that is an issue, and that's one thing that Bill has been, every time the water comes up, they call Bill Ford. And Bill will tell you what the commissioner before me told me, and what I will tell you is that the road belongs to the county, the bridge doesn't belong to the county. And you have to get permission from the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, the state of Texas, and the Texas Parks and Wildlife, and God knows who else, to do anything to that bridge. And the bridge needs to be fixed. So we're talking about being a county commissioner, Shawn. You've had countless conversations about Mineral Wells Crossing. So let's start with you. Where do we stand now? What should we do? What are the options? And as a commissioner, what can you do?
Well, there needs to be some relief for those people immediately. You know, as you said, during the flooding times, and then when it's icy, the approach to that bridge is awfully steep and it's on a curve. So I view that as a safety issue, not only for the person trying to cross it, but if you have some type of health emergency, you need some help now. In years past, there was an agreement between the rancher that owned the property heading west or heading north towards 2335, and residents could go through that area. And somehow owners have changed and some trust has been lost. I think some gates got left open. I think some litter occurred. For some immediate response, something that can happen right now at little or no cost to the county, I would go to those owners with my hat in my hand, make an agreement. I will personally, me personally, will be there to watch the gates. We'll have them open we'll make an agreement, 7 a.m. to 8:30. At that point, they're locked. In the evenings, we'll do the same and let everybody in. And under an emergency during the day, there will be either myself, a deputy, some type of official there to let them through and let them have access. And then that is just a temporary fix, but it's something that needs to happen now. And then, like you were saying, there's hoops to jump through to get a new bridge there. And even after you jump through the hoops, how are you going to pay for it?
How are you going to get the money?
Yes. So we got to think outside the box. We got to get some outside money coming in because, I mean, a bridge is well over $1 million even for that little area. So that's hard to do with a strained budget like we have.
That's right. And that crossing is emblematic of roads and bridges in Tom Green County. There's not enough money generated by that $10 fee on your license to take care of the roads we have, much less the roads we're going to get. What's the reality you've been fighting, Bill? Just as an example with the Mineral Wells crossing, you've had lots of conversations about that too every time it rains.
I've stood down there and opened the gates and closed the gates. It's been a challenge. That's been a tough deal because the prior owner of the ranch would give a key to one of the landowners out there, and they would allow the people through his ranch over to 2335. It worked out real good. Well, years passed, and Mr. Jones passed, and the new owners comes in, and he was okay with it. You know, we had a couple of high water floods, and the bridge got flooded, and he allowed it to. We worked together, and we'd talk to him all the time. And then we had some episodes of gates left open, and there was some trash, but it was mostly the gates left open. He leases. He's got livestock, 70, 80 cows. Plus, he has hunters in there, and they hunt on both sides of that access road. There's never been a legal easement that went through there. There was never any documentation done legally to allow people through there on any kind of, agreement that would say this is what has to happen. He was nice about it. He was really good about it. I remember distinctly the day that the gates were left open and the cows got out on the highway.
Yeah.
I'm not a cowboy, but some cowboys showed up, and I did have some feed in the back of my truck, and those calves would come to feed, but I thought he would never find out about it, but he did. And ranchers, it's a big deal to a rancher in leaving his gate open. I've seen people hunted on 10 or 15 years on leases, paying high dollar money to hunt on a man's ranch, and they leave the gate open and they lose the lease on the spot. That's just the way landowners are in Texas, and I'm not about to argue with them. Personal property rights in Texas is paramount to everything. I mean, we've worked and worked and worked to try to get issues. We've warned people. I have no idea when it's going to flood because sometimes it'll rain 5 inches in El Dorado and we'll get a sprinkle and here comes a flood, and it comes fast. It goes down pretty fast, but that doesn't make them happy.
Yeah.
It's my fault, But that's okay. And now there are ways of working it. $3 million, the latest figures to build to build a bridge. We'd have to come up 6 feet. I mean, they've got all kinds of rules now about how bridges to be built.
Yep.
The safety requirements. Plus, now the costs are probably 50% higher than they were 3 years ago. There is some opportunities that may happen, but it's not something you just beat on the fence and say, this is what we need to do. One of the ideas is we're trying, I'm working with the landowners, that access from that subdivision over to where I live, which is on Green Oaks.
Right.
And there's two landowners who, if they would give us an easement, you know, we could put a new road in, we could put this and do that. And I've approached them, and they're not saying definitely no, but they're darn sure not saying yes. So it's a work in progress. I've approached them and talked to them, and face to face, I know them. I think it might happen in due process, due time. I just hope the river stays down for a while. But that's something we can do legally and document and have access from that point to the other side. And it's not even that far. It's 3/4 of a mile.
Right.
But the problem is there's the two locations. One of them's rough in the draw. We couldn't go through it. And it floods just like the other place. But the other one is pretty flat, and I think that may be our solution. That may be our best bet, but it's just a matter of, they're absentee landowners, you know?
Okay. Yeah, they don't live here and don't.
It's one of those deals, but I think there's a solution for it. It's certainly not something I don't discount, and I want to see a solution. I want to see it happen. But there's laws, and the law says that a subdivision is required to have one entrance in and out, not two.
Yep.
And that's frustrating for the landowner, because for years they had an access point to get out of there. So, and it's tough. I understand it.
Well, and that is just one example, and you could point to 3 or 4 of those in every precinct in Tom Green County, and that's why I wanted to use that as an example, because those are the types of issues, the rural issues that the Commissioners Court sees on a regular basis, and that's such a small part of what the Commissioners Court does when 90%, 80 or 90% of what you're charged with is criminal justice. Keeping track of official records through the county court, county clerk's office, and the district clerk's office, and being a commissioner, you've got to have more than you've got to work with the other 3 commissioners, because they've got issues that are just as pressing in their precincts. Let's move on, and we'll touch on this a lot more with the judicial candidates. There's a tremendous pressure on property tax and actually on property values right now. Property values across the state are skyrocketing, not just here in Tom Green County, but particularly in Harris County and Travis County, Houston and Austin. The state is poorly prepared. The laws of the state are poorly prepared, and right now, Drew Darby and his colleagues in the House and Charles Perry and his colleagues in the Senate are considering what to do to lower your property taxes, because your property tax bill is the #1 issue right now in Austin. And whoever wins these elections will be sworn in January 1st. 10 days after that, the legislature meets in 2023, and the legislature will meet for 140 days. Governor Abbott has a list of priorities, and one of them is a taxpayer's bill of rights. The Democrat running for governor, Beto O'Rourke, also has a plan to tackle property rights. So whoever gets elected, property rights is going to be on the top of what the legislature does, property taxes. So let's talk about that a little bit. The county's portion of your tax bill, I used to be able to say that this is all school-driven. Property taxes in Texas are driven by public schools, the financing of public schools. For every $1 you pay in property tax, 50 cents of that goes to the public school system, the school district that you live in. If you live inside the city limits of San Angelo, the next 30%, or 30 cents rather, goes to the city of San Angelo on your tax bill. So there's 80 cents. The last 20 cents of that dollar is what the county gets. And 80% of what the county gets is mandated by the legislature on what they can spend it on. So you've got a very, very narrow ability to spend money. And I've heard every county judge that I've ever known say that if bad guys would just quit doing bad things, your property tax wouldn't exist. It would be almost nothing. So let's talk about the criminal justice system a little bit. We've got a $70 million jail out there, Shawn, that we can't afford to hire enough deputies because we can't pay them enough. What do we do there?
Well, hopefully with the new magistrate and the public defender's office, some of our costs will go down and we'll save some money in the budget, and we can afford to pay those jailers some more money and keep them out there. Now, the jail that was built, that was before my time. You'll have to talk to Mr. Ford. You know, I know our population has exploded. Best plans that they came up with, they, I assume, planned for future growth. I don't know. Was it bad planning? I don't know. I wasn't on the commissioner's court. I wasn't involved. But we're all growing. Our population is exploding, and that thing's only going to get crowded more, and it's already at capacity. Now, it is designed to add on an additional wing, but, I mean, construction costs are going up every day.
That's very true.
Now, we do make a little bit of revenue for housing inmates from other counties, but, I mean, it's not enough to really make a whole lot of sense. But we don't want to have to start housing our prisoners in other counties and paying them money. Man, we gotta get a hold on our criminals. We gotta expedite their trials to get them in and out, open up some bed space. And what's confusing is they say it's at capacity, but there's two different wings. There's a male wing and a female wing. Now, the male wing may be 90% capacity, and we have some, 40% capacity or whatever in the female. There's empty beds, but you can't commingle those two.
Right.
So we got to do something. Easiest thing to do, but it would hurt financially, is continue that wing on. But we're already short-staffed on jailers. What happens then?
Right. Right. That's a tough one, Bill. The jail was full when we built it, and we kind of anticipated that, but, we've got a meth problem. We have bad guys doing bad things. We've got a backed up docket because of the pandemic. We're getting there. We do, I want to applaud you guys for the public defender's office. I think that was a good decision. It was a long time coming. You know more about how that works than I do. Talk about the public defender, the magistrate judge, and the jail.
Well, when we just started with the idea of the jail, at that time I was more concerned about adding on to the courthouse. But immediately we started having needs from that current sheriff, and the situation was escalating quickly. And we had a problem in the old jail with it. The construction of it had some severe construction issues like leaks, cracked slab. We had about a lot of problems. And the jail commission enters in and starts giving us, caution flags, red tags. They start telling us we have to start changing the way we do things. And then the epidemic or pandemic wasn't nearly as bad as what's happened in our criminal justice in the town with methamphetamines and now fentanyl, and then the crime rate has gone up. We had, with the pandemic in the situation, and the courts not working, and no jury trials, we had a massive number, and still do. Joe, our public defender's office director, but can elaborate. But we have a large number of people in our jail that are felons. They're waiting on a jury trial for felony trials, and some of them capital murder trials, and some of them are even more, that kind of thing. So. And a lot of this is a revolving door. Some of these guys have been around there and done this several times. And so we have a problem with the jail being full and continue to be full. And we just can't just turn them loose. And to be honest with you, we don't have enough jailers to do what the law requires us to have. I think we're 30 short right now, and that's not cheap. It runs close to $100,000 a month. Now, in overtime. to pay. We have to man the jail. We have to have them in there. So we take the jailers we do have and we pay them overtime to man the jail, and it's what we're required by law. And guys, I'm going to tell you something. The state legislature and the Constitution tells the court, commissioner's court, what to do. We are an arm of the legislature. We don't have the freedom to make ordinances, to change laws, and to do anything else. We can adjust the best we can with what we have, but we're not given the funding to do the job that we're required by law to do. And I think Tom Green County has done exemplary in the past 9.5 years I've been on the court to be able to do it with what we've had. We have an exceptional auditor and treasurer, and those people work. I don't know how they do it, but we get grants. We get all kinds of federal grants. The jails get help, and the jailers get help, and the law enforcement gets help. We get training help. We get emergency management help, and so we're constantly being educated about what's out there. But what we're seeing is it's an epidemic of crime, and it's not going to change. I've got a good friend in Del Rio. He's on the Border Patrol, and he's about to retire, and he can't wait to retire. But his explanation to me, he says, Bill, it's a flood. He said, it's a flood, and he says, if they tell you that there's 1 million people, that's not right. He said there's been at least 2 million people make it across the border, whether they're tagged, know about them or anything, since last October. Now, that's 2 million people are going somewhere. And I don't know if y'all see them, but I see them. I see them in Sonora. I see them in Ozona. I see them in San Angelo. I see them in Cristobal. We've had them in our parks on weekends. And I'm not just pointing a finger at bad guys. Most of them are good folks. Okay. I was impressed by the way they cleaned up the park one day, and there was 100 of them. And they told me they were from Nicaragua and the next country below it, Guatemala, somewhere down there. But
that would be
they didn't speak very good English, and I certainly didn't speak very good Spanish. But they were pleasant to talk to. I didn't fear any danger from them, but they were doing something they have not been able to do in their home country, and that have a picnic on a waterway or a lake or a river. So they were doing something they haven't been able to do for a long time. So I have to admit that they're coming for a better life. I don't blame them for that.
Well, and we do 2 stories every day at San Angelo Live. We do an illegal alien story, and we do a booking report story. And on that booking report are people who are arrested for first-time possession of a controlled substance, and it's normally meth. And those guys, just because I've been in the court system, if your first felony offense for possession of a controlled substance, you are going to get probation. You're not going to do any jail time because we don't have room in the jail. But changing the laws is above the Commissioner's Court's pay grade. You have to deal with what the legislature says you're going to do, and we're going to talk about that shortly. Other things that the Commissioner's Court has to deal with on a regular basis, inflation. Inflation today, the price of gas, you all know, you all fill up your vehicles, and that has a ripple effect. You know, I never thought I would live in a country where I can walk into the grocery store and H-E-B and see empty shelves. The pandemic had a lot to do with that. But I'm still seeing empty shelves in H-E-B in San Angelo, Texas today. Inflation is going to hit, inflation's already hit the court. You guys had to redo your gas contract recently because the person whom you had contracted with for fuel could not provide it at the contract they signed. So you were fortunate enough to go out for bids and find somebody else that could meet your need, could meet the county's needs. But it's not just fuel. I mean, you got to feed those inmates. You got to buy. I mean, you've got construction going on. Shawn, let's talk about some of those those challenges that inflation are going to put on your household, your gas tank, and all that, and that same pressure is on every aspect of the county government.
That's right. In our households, we can cut out what's non-essential. Maybe not take a vacation this year, not go out to eat at a fancy restaurant on the weekends. The county's budget is whittled down pretty hard as it is, and you've got 30 however many agencies coming to you all with their hand out wanting more. Hey, we need more money. We need to up our salaries. Fuel's costing more. Our supplies are costing more. Tires for the crews, equipment for the sheriff's department, you name it. Everything is going up. And like I said in my interview with you, you can't squeeze a dry lemon and get anything out of it. We got to get some outside funding. We got to work on the tax rate. I visited with the gentleman over at the tax office this morning. I've been on the comptroller's website. We go through this deal of smoke and mirrors every year where, we drop the tax rate a little bit, but price values have soared through the roof. We got to think up some new ideas. We got to network, talk to other counties, see what's going on. Like right now in Montgomery County, they got the no new revenue tax rate. They're trying to reset everything by saying, okay, what your levy is, you're still going to pay the same amount of money basically for your tax bill, but we're going to reset things. We're going to bring values up, but drop the tax rate. So the tax rate doesn't just exponentially keep growing and everybody's upset. And I mean, I'm campaigning on the fact I'm going to try to lower your taxes. I've done it at Christoval where I've been on the school board for 12 years. And I will find a way to make it happen. And this is not a good time to be making that promise with inflation like it is, but it will happen.
Okay. Same thing, Bill. Inflation has hurt your house, and it's certainly hurt the Commissioner's Court in Tom Green County. What are you seeing, and what are some solutions?
Well, the outside source of money is drying up. ARPA funds will probably be our last shot at getting some relief in some areas, especially law enforcement, jails, the food for the jail. Some of this stuff there's not going to be relief as we think there is. The tax rate we don't set. The tax rate is capped by the legislature, and we are, and it's probably going to get capped again. Now, the suggestion by the comptroller and the governor and the Senate, they're all a little bit opposed to the way they want to do it. And we're in good shape. The state's in good shape. I saw the comptroller's report. We're pretty solid. But that's only going to last as long as what happens when oil goes back down to $25. But with inflation, that's a different animal altogether. Those of us remember back in the day, which I do, in the 80s, in the late 70s, mostly the late 70s, early 80s, and then it hit real hard in the late 80s. When inflation hit us, interest rates were 18 to 20%. I mean, it kills you. It takes away every gasp of air that you have in the house because there's no place to put it. There's no place to find that money to cover that elephant in the room. And it's really going to be, and I just pray that we don't have that so bad out here, but if we have unknown things like increased law enforcement I'm hoping the public defender's office starts seeing results sooner than later. But there's some caveats to that, and they could talk about that, but that's over my pay grade. But I'm telling you, those caveats are real scary because we don't know what the fallout would be if we have to release a whole lot of these inmates like they're doing in other states and other cities. We don't want to go to that route. We've got, and that's really where the judges and the legislature takes over. But we really got to get ourselves prepared. And that's why my experience on the court with a new judge coming in is going to be extremely valuable to be able to work together based on our experience in the past. When I came on 10 years ago, we were in a similar situation. It wasn't nearly as bad, or wasn't expected to be bad, but we were really at the position of cutting revenue and cutting, jobs. We were thinking about reducing the workforce, and that may happen. But there's places we can't reduce. And me and the commissioners, we work on streamlining our road and bridge crews. We've got better equipment. We can do more work with less men at less money. And so we're working on ways to train them on this better equipment and using less materials, because we can't get the materials. We're third in line to get rock to pave our roads. We've got a great deal going with the city of San Angelo. We're going to get 20 miles of roads chip sealed this summer. And that's not our money. That's agreement between us and San Angelo. Now, after that, we've got another 90 miles left. And, we took a hit in that ice storm. So we're trying to get all that stuff repaired where it's in good enough shape to last us 2 or 3 more years so we can get through some of this. But it's going to take a lot of work, and we don't mind it. It's part of what we do. But and it's really, there are some good solutions. I do communicate with other counties a lot because of they're experimenting too with some new equipment and some ways to do patching and repairs on the roads, replacement at less money. So we're coming up with better solutions all the time. So we'll get there. And it's not at the end of the road by any means. It's just going to be something we're just going to have to work hard and work harder. It's my son keeps telling me, he says, don't work harder, work smarter. And that's what we're doing.
All right. We are at the point where we're going to have to wrap this up and go on to the next section. But I do want to give you guys a chance for the last word. So, Shawn, the last word, your thoughts heading into the runoff election.
Well, as we've talked about tonight, times are changing. Our population's exploding. Our infrastructure's changing. The value of our hard-earned dollar is definitely changed. Our county is going to have a change in leadership of a new judge. And with your support, so will Precinct 4 have change in leadership as commissioner. And it's time for that change. And I know my fellow residents of Precinct 4 welcome that change. In the primary, there were 5 opponents against the incumbent. I think that speaks volumes. And I almost feel like I have facilitated a change already. I mean, there's brush being cleared along the road out in my neck of the woods in my part of the precinct. I don't remember that being done since Mr. Ford's been in office. What other changes and obstacles lie ahead? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. And I'm not going to sit here and look you in the eye and tell you that I've got all the answers and all the solutions to the problems, because I do not. But what I will tell you is I will work my tail off for you. I will find the answers. I will work every day to be a better commissioner than I was the day before. I will listen to you. I will work for you. And I will make you proud of what we can accomplish together. I have the aptitude and the sense of commitment to have a positive impact on Precinct 4, and I would certainly appreciate your vote. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Shawn. Bill, final thoughts on this experiment we've had here tonight.
Thank you. This has been kind of fun. We have a lot of these little forums, and I was really surprised to see 5 people lined up to get my job. But I haven't found one of them tell me anything I'm doing wrong with what I've been doing for 10 years. They just say they want change. Well, I got some change in my pocket, but that's not the kind of change that's going to help this county. It's just hard work, experience in hard work. And then also the kind of experience it's going to take to lead the new judges into it's not just our county judge. We've got new leadership throughout the county that's going to be needing insight and vision, energy, all these things that I've been doing for several years. And I know every elected official. I know the people in the county. I know the people in my precinct. And they support me. They love what's going on. We're fixing things. When we didn't have the the manpower, the time, and we had the COVID in there where we couldn't do the repairs and fixing up the grant on the park, now we're using that money that's been sitting there. We couldn't do it because Parks and Wildlife said, whoa. And so we're back at it. We're fixing everything, putting in the bathrooms, putting in the pavilions, putting in the new roads. So a lot of this stuff is just on the fringe of being completed, and then we'll step into the next level and for the next grants. A lot of these grants are still available. One of the biggest issues in Precinct 4 is the water issue in Christoval. And I've been able to get grant money from the ARPA funds to repair the dam, which is fragile. If that dam were to fail, then we would lose the water system for all of Christoval, and very likely for the school system and everything else. We don't want a flood coming and hitting that thing. And that's how, with the dam engineers have given us study after study that says this thing needs to be fixed. So now we've got the money to do it, and we're going to fix that. And I've also gotten the ARPA funds to give the Christoval Water District plenty of money to renovate the plant. They took a big hit in the ice storm. They lost plumbing, they lost pumps. We're required to have backup pumps. I'm drilling 2 wells in the park for irrigation in the park to irrigate the trees that started this whole thing 10 years ago. We're losing them. But also that potential is that water wells that we dig, if it's good enough water, then we could pump that to the plant and do the requirement that the Water Commission is asking the Water District to do, and that's have backup water wells. There's 4 water wells that supply Christoval Water District. One of them provides the water. The other 3 are sludged up. And we're going to re-drill those and clean them out. That's how fragile the water is down there. And several thousand people rely on that water. And it's crucial for us to, and I've been working for years to get this done, and we're finally getting it done. So I don't need to be stopping in the middle of the creek and say, well, I'll hand it off. Somebody who doesn't know about it, who doesn't know how to fix it, doesn't know anything about how to build a road, doesn't know about county budgets, doesn't know about the law enforcement issues, doesn't know about how to deal with the things that are laying on our table right now. So I'm prepared, I'm doing it, and I haven't stopped. So I ask for your vote. It's going to be a good one. Thank you.
All right, there you have it. Shawn, Nanny, Bill Ford. See how easy being a commissioner is? Thank you both for being here. Thank you for participating, and I think they deserve a round of applause. Thank you, guys. We are going to take a short break, and we will be back with Todd Coles and Lane Carter, our county judge candidates.
For the last 27 years as a member of the Tom Green County Sheriff's Office, I've seen my share of serious crimes and bad characters.
As your next Justice of the Peace of Precinct 3, I want to use my knowledge of the law to keep our community safe. That means ensuring that proper bond amounts are being placed on repeat offenders.
You deserve a JP who understands mental health issues, has experience in records, warrants, and affidavits, along with a proven law enforcement career.
Fair justice you can count on. Stacye Speck for Tom Green County Justice of the Peace Precinct 3.
All right, well, hello and welcome back to the 2022 Tom Green County Republican Primary Runoff Candidate Forum, joined by Joe Hyde. We just heard from Mr. Bill Ford and Shawn Nanny, the incumbents, Bill Ford, Shawn Nanny, the challenger Commissioner of Precinct 4 here in Tom Green County. Joe, they touched on a lot of things, one of which there was a little back and forth, if you will, certainly in the final thoughts. Ford, Nanny said, it's time for a change.
Mm-hmm.
He said he felt that maybe things have already been facilitated. He's not even in office with cleaning of brush. Well, then Ford said, I have plenty of change in my pocket. And that,
Basically, Ford just threw it out at him, said, Nanny really doesn't know what he's going to do.
Sure.
I mean, he basically just threw it out there.
Yes.
And Nanny didn't have a chance
That
to
not
answer.
one single candidate can tell him what he's been doing wrong.
What has he done wrong?
Right.
And then he goes into this litany of, we don't want to risk it with a new county judge coming in, and they don't know what they're going to. Nanny doesn't know what he's going to do, and I thought that was a pretty tough broadside.
Right.
I mean, he came in, but at the same time, Nanny came in and said, "Hey, look at we need to change. We need to change because what we're seeing right now is we're seeing you can almost see it in his head going, well, we're seeing 8 years worth of brushwork being cleared in this this month because the election's coming up."
Yep.
But that's the big thing. I mean, Ford did attract 5 candidates, right, to run against him, and that's unheard of.
Right.
And I've been around Tom Green County a long time, and I don't remember that many candidates running against one.
Certainly. Both Yanis also asked about inflation, and that Nanny responded, can't squeeze a dry lemon. You must get outside funding, and then Ford said, well, outside sources are drying up.
Right. And I don't know if that's true. I've heard from the Nanny camp that Ford's just won't go to meetings, so he's missed opportunities to get outside funding. So that's a little bit that's a little bit underneath what Nanny was trying to get to when he was talking about. But like I said, Ford certainly does have the knowledge. He's been there since 2012, a long time. And I think the principal argument in this whole race for Precinct 4 is, do you want someone with the experience who's been there 10 years, or is it time for a change? And I think in a lot of places, you see the time for a change side kind of winning out.
Sure.
This is politics, and that's kind of what it has. So Ford has to make a strong argument that I'm super competent. We have some problems coming up that we need to take care of, and that's what he's trying to do. So new county judge. Then he went into this long discussion about the Cristobal water system.
Yes.
So
he called it that is the biggest issue. Facing certainly water down in the south end of the Concho Valley in Cristobal.
And it might be, I don't know. The problem is most of your voters in Southland, they're up inside the city. They don't give a darn about Cristobal's water system.
It's two different things.
Yeah. So you're dealing with, maybe 600 votes down in Cristobal versus thousands of votes in Southland. So I don't know if it's going to be enough to pull him over, but he is selling that. I have the experience to fix it. I have the experience to fix roads. This guy over here, this Shawn Nanny, he doesn't know anything.
Yeah. In fact, the bridge crew, Ford said they're doing more work with less men, which
right.
that's something.
Disclaimer: when I ran for county judge, the number one thing when I was talking with constituents, I would get these Precinct 4 constituents, which I am one too. I live in Dove Creek. That's all I hear is complaints about the roads not getting done, things like that. Of course, Bill has good answers for them. The ice deal back in February 2021, when everything iced over and tore up a lot of roads out there, and he couldn't fix them because of the weather, because of the way the weather was. But anyway, this right here, this race is really interesting in the history of San Angelo politics.
Unprecedented.
And the question is, are people going to vote for change, or are they going to vote for experience? And one more thing, I don't want to discount Shawn Nanny's experience. He's been the president of the
for 12 years.
Well, for the Cristobal ISD School Board.
Right.
And I think that Cristobal ISD School Board has done a great job all the way through. I mean, I pay taxes down there, so I know. But so that's the argument: experience versus time for change.
Right.
So the people have a choice to decide.
That's
are we about to go back over here?
It looks like they are telling us to kind of wind things down. We'll get to one last angle here, and that was regarding Mineral Wells Crossing. Nanny says needs immediate relief, that he would go hat in hand to some of these folks.
And he has a hat.
Yes, and he would personally watch the gates from 1 hour to certain hours, think outside the box, think outside money, while Ford said, that is certainly a problem. You got to look for easement from area landowners in that particular area to create maybe potential roads in that particular area.
Right.
What were your thoughts on certainly Nanny going hat in hand and Ford looking for potential roads from area landowners?
Well, Ford has a plan. And the two plans he talked about, those 2 roads that would provide a relief route are there, and they just need to work the deal out. Nanny's plan is more immediate. So Nanny's saying, all right, we can solve this right now, at least have a Band-Aid on it.
Right.
But the Mineral Wells Crossing situation kind of highlights a bigger problem in the county. As people start building more and more houses out in the county, we're going to have all these roads being built for subdivisions.
Right.
Who's going to pay to upkeep those roads? Because we can't tax more for them.
Right.
Right? So are we going back?
Okay.
Keep going. All right. Well, coming up next. Coming up next, yes, indeed. We have Todd Coles.
This is a race you know a thing or two
I know
about.
this a lot. And disclaimer, I ran in this race and lost to these 2 guys. So
Yeah.
it's really tough.
Yes.
It's really tough for me to talk about it.
Well, that's why we got you here. This is therapy here.
Therapy. But
Think of
I
it
can
that
give
way.
you some insights and things, from what I saw when I was on the stage.
Okay.
What it
Well, real
feels
quick.
like,
So Todd Coles, Lane Carter, that are going to go head-to-head tonight with Yanis Green. What would you like to hear from these 2 gentlemen to perhaps, one thing, you were all about lowering taxes.
Right.
What do you think would be beneficial for the voters out there to hear from these 2 gentlemen tonight?
I think right now, with the way it is now Leantis kind of said in the preamble to the county commissioners forum, he talked about the Texas legislatures lowering the property values.
Right.
From ordering the Texas comptroller to order these appraisal districts lower. Basically, what we have right now is we have unelected officials, basically knighted by the state of Texas to jack up your values on your land. So the only relief valve you have are tax rates, and that's whether you're the school district or you're the county or you're the city. Now, Todd Coles has now adapted some of my bling,
yes,
and saying he wants to lower the tax rates. But at the same time, and then Carter's more, I don't know, technocrat. So he looks more at the policy or, how are we dealing with this particular Manning issue, those kinds of things. So we're not hearing a lot about tax cuts from Lane Carter, but we're hearing them from Todd Coles. Now, I will say this. We might hear from Todd Coles about tax cuts, but he's also talking about building coliseums and all these other things. So if you're going to you're going to cut taxes, you got to cut spending somewhere.
I think that is one thing we are certainly looking forward to hearing from
Right.
regarding the Coliseum and what we saw from the rodeo this season.
Right.
So, nonetheless, we will go back to the podium with Mr. Yanis Green, Angelo Live Editor-in-Chief, for our final session of the evening featuring the Tom Green County Judge candidates, Mr. Todd Coles and Mr. Lane Carter. Yanis Green, take us away.
Well, good evening. We're back again with the final segment of our program, and with me are the 2 surviving members of the campaign for Tom Green County Judge. Lane Carter is here, and Todd Coles is here, and I think we should give them a round of applause just for being here. Now, I told Todd I get to pontificate a little bit here because I'm so passionate about county government and about state government. And the reason counties exist, I mentioned it a little bit before, is the legislature, when Texas was forming, said we've got to be able to manage each little area of the state. So there's a grid, and there's 254 counties in Texas, and one of them is named Tom Green, and it's a geographic part of the state. And what the legislature has done, and county government has evolved, when counties were first created, the county judge was actually called the Chief Justice of the county. And the judge and the commissioner's court, there's 4 commissioners, 1 for each precinct. You heard from Bill Ford and Shawn, Nanny a while ago. So there's 4 commissioners and the county judge that make up the court. Now, the judge does more than that. The judge has judicial responsibilities as well, but the judge does not have to be a lawyer, and neither one of you are lawyers. Wow, good. Nobody up here is a lawyer. We have that in common. There are many issues facing Tom Green County, and it's nothing new. What's facing every county right now in Texas is the skyrocketing property values, and that's because there are so many people moving to Texas right now that there's not enough housing, and that makes the cost of housing go up because everybody pays more for whatever house they can find. What that does to counties is create a situation where you raise more money on your tax rate, but it creates huge headaches at the state level because the legislature wants to cap what your tax bill is, and because they hear you every day about how high your tax bill is. I was reading earlier today that in Harris County and in Travis County, the home values have increased 25% and 30% respectively this year. From last year to this year, 25%. Your house is worth 20% more, taxed 25% more than it was last year. That is broken, and the legislature is going to do something about it. So one of you guys is going to be sworn in as county judge on January 1st. 10 days later, the legislature is going to meet for 140 days, and their first priority is property tax relief, no matter who the governor is going to be. So that's my pontification. Tom Green County is my home, and you guys as well. I'm going to give you a minute. Let's take a minute to introduce yourselves, because you've done this 100 times before, and you've got a couple more times after that. So, Lane, who are you?
My name is Lane Carter, and I am a local homegrown boy here in Tom Green County, 34 years of age. I was a graduate of Central High School of 2006, graduate of ASU with a bachelor degree in biology 2010 and a bachelor's in nursing 2011 and 12. I went on to serve in the City Council 2016 to this most recent November, where I stepped down to run for this position. I served as a nurse for 6 years in the ER, 2 of those, and 4 years of those in the operating room at Shannon. I have experience in the municipal realm with our budget, $70 million worth of general fund, that can relate to the same issues that we have at the county level. I have the experience and qualifications both on the administrative sector of this position as well as judicial sector of this position relating to mental health. We are in a mental health crisis. I look forward to addressing issues like that because that will only affect our criminal justice system through placements. And I look to solutions. I look for serving. That's why I ran for the City Council. That's why I'm running for your Tom Green County judge. And I would be honored to be your next one.
All right, thank you, Lane. Todd Coles, you're also a Central guy.
Yes.
That's kind of scary because I'm a Lakeview guy, and I'm surrounded. But Todd, you're running for county judge as well. Todd
Yes.
Coles, who are you?
My name is Todd Coles. I'm running for Tom Green County Judge. I am a husband. I'm a father of 3 children. I'm a business owner here in town. I give back to my community. I've served on numerous boards. I was most recent president of the City of San Angelo Development Corporation. I currently serve as a board member for the San Angelo Stock Show and Rodeo. And after we've done these forums, I am really tired of talking about me, and I am ready to talk about you. And I'm ready to talk about the citizens, and I'm ready to talk about what we need here as a community. And so I want to get into y'all's lives, and if you want to know anything else about me, contact me, but I'm ready to go. So let's talk about Tom Green County.
All right, thank you, Todd. Thank you, Lane. Let's talk about Tom Green County. The current county judge and commissioner's court in about a month or month and a half are going to start the next budget process. And they're going to operate under the same rules that they've been operating under from the legislature. And then this will be Judge Floyd's last budget to write. And I know that y'all have gone through this process. So let's discuss a little bit about that budget process. I know that you hear this all the time, and we've all talked about it before, in that the county judge sits there with the commissioners, and you got 26 department heads, most of them elected officials, almost all of them, that have their own little departments, and they come to you during the budget process, and they say, I love you, we're doing a great job, we need more money. And I know this because I've seen it, and they do it every year, and they're right. They're right. And so this process, you've seen it. What are you looking forward to this time, particularly with inflation and gas prices and that sort of thing, Lane?
I'm looking forward to addressing the issues that we hear the constituents, our civil servants, talking about on a daily basis. We have workforce problems here in the county. We have that throughout the state. We have pay issues through this county and retention rates. We have that through the state. I've seen six budget cycles over my last 5.5 years at the city council, and we had the issues of working through pay, working through retention. We address those through our PD, through our fire department. That was a pleasure to do so because I advocated very heavily for our civil servants. I'm looking forward to prioritizing issues like that, looking for more revenue streams, whether that be through grant funding or through partnerships. The last few segments, you talked a little bit about partnerships through the county and the city. I believe the county and the city, seeing the same issues, can partner in more realms. That way, our tax dollars on both the city and the county can be utilized and saved on both ends. I've seen it being it's possible. I've seen it happen, but working for our citizens, working for our employees, working for an overall outcome of lowering our tax rate, which will in turn help our taxes at the end of the year. I feel it. I know every citizen feels it, so I'm looking to help better serve that way.
That's the comment I get the most is, why is my tax bill so high? Todd, the budget process, you've seen it, you've been through it. What do you think?
I sat through some of it last summer when it was going on. I cannot wait to get in there first day, and I'm going to meet every county employee. I'm going to go to every elected official. I'm going to say, show me your department. I want to talk to everyone in that department. I want to get to know everyone in that department. I want to know what their needs, what their wants, and what their goals are for this job. We tend to forget that whenever people have a job, whether it's with the county or wherever it is, they have goals with that career. I want to know what those goals are. Well, what are you here? What do you want to be doing in 10 years? I also want to know, where are we short? What do you need in this department? What can we do better? What can we do worse? Now, I'm going to be very frank with them on day one. I want to get to know them. I want to know who they are, what they want. But I'm also going to tell them, look, don't come asking for much. Because this first year, we're going to have to get through some tough times. Because we have a ton of challenges right now, inflation being one of them. So this first year, don't expect a whole lot out of Judge Kolls. Because this is not the year to start spending more money and giving into the things that we want. We're going to have to tighten our belt. We're going to have to figure, and it's not just about tightening our belt this first year. We're going to have to get downright creative as to how we're going to deal with the cost, the inflation, and everything else that's coming our way, because it is going to be tough. So as far as the budgeting process, I cannot wait to get in there and go through that line item by line item. What do we need? What do we need? What do we need? I'm not going to cut anything that is essential. 15% of the departments within the county are the only things that we could cut, because everything else is mandated by the state as to we have to have it.
That's right.
So as far as that's concerned, you're talking about business management. You're talking about managing those things that the state mandates us to have. Mm-hmm. And that's where my business management's going to come into play. But as far as the leftovers of what we can and cannot cut, there's not going to be a whole lot of meat left on that bone when I get done with it, I can assure you.
All right, thanks for that. That does bring up a point that I wanted to bring out in that in researching what the legislature is going to do. I can't stress enough that the legislature is going to have a huge impact on counties and cities and schools. So you're going to get Judge Floyd gets to write his final budget this year, and then the following year the legislature meets, and the next county judge is going to write his budget under the same rules, basically under the same rules, because what the legislature will do is either kick off their new plan in September or January 1st of 23. And that is on the next judge's sophomore budget. Hang on to your hats, because we've seen what the legislature can do. And Joanne Rice and I have seen, your mom, and I saw Robin Hood. We saw what the state did what the legislature did to even out funding for school districts across Texas. My fear is that the legislature has forgotten that process, and what they're going to do in 2023 is revisit that plan to recapture, to cap, especially what scares me is capping, putting a hard clamp on the tax rate that you can set at the county. And what's even worse is I think they have a plan. I think what they're going to do is reduce the amount of revenue that you can collect. And Robin Hood was the same thing. And they bounced around. It took 4 sessions, 4 legislative sessions, 8 years to iron that out, and it's still not a perfect system, but it's better than it was. The legislature hasn't directly attacked cities and counties yet, but I see that in the conversations that I'm seeing out of Austin. So I also, the first Commissioners Court meeting I sat through was in 1988 when the Commissioners Court met in the courtroom, in courtroom D, at the counselors' table. There's 2 of them. And they sat around that table, the commissioners did, and the judge, and Gene Rowden was the administrative assistant to the county. So what I've seen the county go through over those years is this evolution of responsibility, and the legislature, when they create a law, the pressure comes from the legislators in Harris County. It's no big secret there. There's more state representatives in Harris County, 26 of them, than there are west of I-35, and those folks basically wag the dog when it comes to state finance and what the legislature comes up with. And what happens is counties like Tom Green, that are a mid-sized county, are not high on the priority list of what happens when that legislature's passed. And the best example I can give you is the election integrity bill. We had to have election integrity in Texas after the 2020 election. The legislature got together, passed it, and what happened was we spent a lot more money, and the election process became much more difficult for individual voters to go vote. And on election night, I was talking to Representative Darby, and I asked him, election night, I said, is this process, are you going to have to tweak election integrity? And he said, absolutely. Absolutely, we've got to tweak that. And what's going to happen with any change that the legislature makes in the structure of how you raise funds for counties is you're going to get whatever they come up with. And it may be extreme and it may hurt. And that's what I think. Just ask school administrators what happened during Robin Hood. That all being said, what do you hear from Austin? What are you prepared to do? You want to take that one on, Lane?
Well, I think you said it right about the competition between east of I-35 and the competition with west of I-35. We seem to be singled out here quite often, and having a relationship with our legislators, Drew Darby and Charles Perry, is going to be crucial. I know they have relationships with Harris County legislators, and I'd like to get with them and also to get with the ones that they have relationships with to advocate for us. The last thing we want to see as a county judge is unfunded mandates. Those only hurt our region because we have to take the brunt of the burden. We have to figure out how we're going to fund that, and you spoke a little bit about the election process. We saw a lot of unfunded mandates come through in the last legislation. They didn't say how you were going to fund it. They just said you had to do it.
Right, right.
So those revenue streams are hurt. Finding where those sources of revenue is going to be crucial. That's where I believe digging down and doing line item by line item is going to be crucial. Okay. That is the way that you're going to help that burden. But on the proactive side, you're going to help that burden by the advocation for our area, saying, wait, hold on. If y'all pass this, this can hurt our citizens of 125,000 people in our county.
Right.
And that might, turn their eyes to where, well, maybe we need to look at it, because Harris County is a different species.
It's a whole
out
different
there.
animal.
It is.
It sure is.
It is. So advocating is heavy.
Okay. Sounds good. Todd, this is a bear, and it's coming. Your sophomore year budget, the state says we're going to take something away from you, a lot away from you. What do you do?
You manage your way through it, not just a whole lot you can do. Drew Darby, Charles Perry, I appreciate them. I voted for both of them, and I would again tomorrow. But get ready for a fight from, again, Todd Coles is the county judge for Tom Green County. Look, Austin is crafty in a lot of ways of how they tell the counties what they can and cannot do, and a lot of the source of funding that's coming our way. We're getting a lot more, if you've noticed, we're getting a lot more grant source funding coming our way from Austin than we are formula form of funding coming from Austin.
Yep.
And that is an enormous thing, because we take all these grants, and are grants a good thing? Well, yeah, they're a good thing. We got a bunch of money for this or that. Grant money is tax money, people. That's what it is. But now the grant comes to us, and guess what? We have to follow their rules as to how we spend that money.
Yep.
Okay? So right now, grants are absolutely, we have to have them. Okay? It's just how the system works right now. But that is a crafty way that the state can kind of keep their thumb on us as far as, well, here's some money, but this is what you're going to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
Here's some money, but you're going to have to do this with it.
Yep.
And we got to be careful of what comes out of Austin. The main thing, we have to work with our representatives in Charles Perry and Drew Darby in Austin. We have to constantly be in contact with them, their offices, their staff, and know we care about this county. We're going to do what Austin tells us to do, but know that there's always going to be a fight coming from us, because we care about the citizens of this county and we want what's best for them.
Okay. And I appreciate that. I will tell you that I love the employees of Tom Green County. You will not find a better group of folks. They work really hard and they sacrifice, and they're the best, and you'll find that out, whoever the next county judge is. And you've probably met most of them, or a lot of them already.
I've already found out a bunch of them.
They're great folks. One of the things I was going to say earlier that I lost my train of thought was, while I was watching all of the evolution of the county, back when I was in school, we had a thing called the bookmobile. And it was part of the Tom Green County Library System, and it went to the rural school districts. And that bookmobile was a godsend to me as a kid, in Grape Creek at the time, we went through the 8th grade, and we had, our library was a closet. And we got those brand new shiny books once a week from the Tom Green County Library and the bookmobile, and it was fantastic, and I loved that. Also, there used to be a dump ground in each of the 4 precincts. I don't know how many of y'all know that. The county used to have a dump site in each of the 4 precincts. And that was for, back before the EPA became the EPA. And so that service was also provided to county residents. And we used to have a purchasing department not too long ago. When Mr. Ford came on board in 2012, there was a purchasing department. All of those things are gone. All of those things have been cut for budgetary reasons. There's no more bookmobile for the library. There's no more dump grounds. That's partially regulatory. There's no more purchasing department. That's handled through Nathan Craddock and the auditor's office. So previous courts have had to make cuts because of funding to hold the line on that tax rate. But you've also got to hold the line on the increase in property values. So I say that to say that there are areas that are optional when it comes to county funding. Now, this beautiful building that we are in is an optional building. A lot of private individuals have donated to this, and it is a county facility and county employees run it, but it is not mandated by the state that counties have a library. Parks are beloved parts of Tom Green County. If you find a more beautiful park than Pugh Park or Harper Park or Foster Park, let me know, because they are fantastic, but they are not mandatory. So you got the library system, and you've got parks, and even roads. Roads don't have to be paved. They just have to be there. So those are areas that are optional when it comes to state mandates and funding. So when you get down to where can we cut, that 15% or so that you can cut, that's what they can cut. Worst case scenario, the legislature says we're cutting your money. What do you cut, Todd?
The library, to me, is not an option, period. End of discussion. Tom Green County will always have a library. It should always have a library. It should always be well-funded and well taken care of. As far as a bus going out to the rural communities, I don't know about that. I am not for cutting any capacities that the county has right now.
Okay.
Everything that the county does right now, you know, the 15% that we don't have to have by law, we have molded as a county into what we need right now and what we don't need. And through the budgetary cycles and through time as we go over the next 4, 8, 12 years, if there's something there that just doesn't seem to fit anymore or doesn't seem to work that way, or we can absorb something into something else, then okay, then we can start cutting. But right now, I'm not going to cut anything. That I've got to get into this job. I want the job so bad. I don't want this position. I want to get in there, roll my sleeves up, and start learning about all of this stuff. Year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, we can start maneuvering and we can start looking at things a little different. But right now, there's nothing that I would cut.
Okay.
And I can assure you the Tom Green County Library System is not going anywhere.
All right. Lane Carter, same question. What do you cut? When the legislature says we're not going to give you enough money to do what you're doing right now, what do you cut?
Getting into that job with the experience that I have seen both the prosperity and hardships with budget cycles already. I'm not a fan of cutting any particular service. If you start cutting one service, you single out that service, and it is hard to get back, very hard to get back. Cutting a library would be detrimental. You do not cut singled out services. You cut back on a scale as a whole. You see where you can manage with cut in revenue. If we see the caps from legislation coming up, you have cut revenue, you will cut back in spending. You see, you'll see decreased in maintenance, unfortunately. That is one area that you see cut back on first.
Okay.
The 6 budget cycles, I keep alluding back to those because those are crucial. We saw how San Angelo, the city of San Angelo and the city council, had to rebound from neglect over the last decades. We see that. Why did we see Bell Street neglected for so long? Because funds were allocated elsewhere. The early 2000s, we had the same kind of inflation and economic downturn. We rebounded from that, but we had the plan to do so. We figured out what our priorities were, how we were going to set those funding resources towards those priorities, and made it happen. But cutting services, singled out, is not an option. You live within your means.
Okay. Very good. Very good. This is the point in time where I'm going to ask you guys, I mean, you've heard every answer, the same pat answers to the same pat questions for months now. You could give me Lane's answers, and Lane, you could give me Todd's answers. So let's do something a little different. We didn't do it in the first 2 segments, but let's go ahead and try this. Do you have questions of each other that pertain to county government? Todd.
A question for Lane?
Do you have a question for Lane?
No, I don't, right off the top of my head.
Okay. All right. Anything you want to ask Todd?
The job requirements, the job description of the county judge has 2 sides,
Okay.
administrative and judicial. Administrative heavily on budget and emergency management. On the judicial side, you'll see will probates, mental health cases, drug courts. Can you elaborate on each of those and experience of how you have done that in the past?
Sure. So on the administrative side, I run a business on a daily basis. Being a custom jeweler, you handle assets, you handle budgets on not just a daily basis, but a customer by customer basis, and that's what I do on a daily. Being president, vice president, and serving on the City of San Angelo Development Corporation for 6 years, I learned the budgetary process through taking in tax revenues and turning those tax revenues around and putting them back to work, following under the guise of what we can and cannot do per state statutes. So that is the experience I have with the administration side of it. Emergency management, just an emergency manager as far as running my business. We have constant things that come up, and we have to remain calm, and my employees will tell you the one thing that I live by is communication. We have to communicate. We have to constantly be in communication with each other, and that is what emergency management is all about, making sure that the proper people have what they need when they need, and it is funded properly. Not at that very time, but that the funds are sitting there waiting for any emergency comes up. Something else I'll speak to emergency management is I want to work with other counties around us, other counties in the state, because I want to learn from their emergencies or their mistakes or what happened there so that we don't have to learn from our own emergencies or our own mistakes. And so I want to set up a coordinating council between all of those counties, come together, I don't know, every quarter, twice a year or something, and say, okay, Corpus, whenever you had something going on, what happened? What did y'all do different? And so emergency management is about being creative. It's about knowing how to manage people and personalities, and it's knowing how to make sure that the budgets are there, ready and willing and available. What was the other part? I'm sorry.
Judicial experience.
Oh, the judicial side. So what I've learned about the judicial side is really cool. The judicial side of this job is common sense solutions. You are taking, in a lot of places, you're taking the rights away from an individual. I want y'all to think about that for a minute, because not many people on this planet have the ability to take somebody's rights away, okay? But the county judge, they do. And so you have to be common sense oriented. You have to understand why that might need to happen, who is fighting for it, who's fighting against it. You have to sit there and you have to disseminate all of that information. And it's fascinating, the few cases that I've read. It truly is fascinating. One of them was a business owner here in town was in the hospital with COVID and was on a respirator. And the business was set up as such where he was the only one that could do payroll. And so the wife had to try to come in and step in with the business manager and a few other people. They had to come step into that role. And that is where you have to take all of the information, because you're literally stripping the rights away from somebody so that someone else can do what they're supposed to do legally. And, you know, that was put on a 30-day. So for 30 days, that's how it went. And in 30 more days, if it still has to go, then we'll do another 30 days. I mean, it was just so neat to see how the government and how the system can take care of its citizens in that way. And it was nothing more than common sense. It was nothing more than understanding problems, issues, business management, and all of the things that I have experience with.
Okay.
Kind of rebuttal on that.
Absolutely.
Okay. Admin portion is the emergency management and the budget. With 6 budget cycles under my belt, I've seen how to divvy up those funds. And it's crucial of having experience in that to bring it up to the county judge level from the city council. You're going to be faced with burdens on funding and how you're going to help fund your civil servants. Emergency management, I have experience with that through not only the last few storms that we have, the ice storm, winter storm Uri, and the tornado of 2019. It's not only a once in a blue moon occurrence that you have emergencies, because Chapter 418 of the Government Code grants you the authority to declare disaster as the county judge. Knowing the knowledge behind that and the experience is going to be needed to know how to fill out the paperwork and do so to help recover our area. You mentioned a little bit about working with our other counties and establishing. We already have that through the Council of Governments. The Concho Valley Council of Governments has county judges meet monthly already on the executive committee. I've been the chairman of the executive committee for the last year. I was mayor pro tem in 2017 for the city of San Angelo. Administratively, I know I am solid. I go in this with the most experience and the most qualifications for this position. On the judicial side as well, with mental health experience, it can rebound and affect the budget, but you are not so much taking the rights away for your patients, but you're advocating for those patients. When you need to know if your signature on the bottom of that line is going to distinguish between medications being administered by mouth with the consent of that patient for the best interest of them, or if they're going to have to administer that intramuscularly, IM. And the knowledge base from my nursing will have the knowledge behind that to know how is that patient going to be affected, what is going through their mind. Sometimes it is best interest for them and the community if you see a danger. But it is an advocation. Mental health can affect our budget. We are in a mental health crisis. If we have mental health units out there that are worked tremendously, and they do a fantastic job. If we have better facilities, better advocation for our mental health, you will affect the budget by keeping inmates out of the criminal justice system being housed in our jail, in our county jail. Mm-hmm. That will free up funding sources for other avenues to be utilized.
Okay.
So.
We could go on all night. I know the three of us could talk about this all night, but I know that y'all need to go home and digest all this, and the folks at home need to figure out who they're going to vote for. Last word. Let's start with Todd. Last word tonight, Todd.
I truly appreciate the opportunity that I have to run for this office. I'm humbled by all the support that I've gotten. I love the fact that this community gets behind either Lane or myself and shows up, and record number for the primary election, and that's fantastic. I've learned a lot about myself running for public office, and a lot of it was eye-opening. But one of the main things that I have learned is I am not a politician. I'm simply not. I am a business-minded leader. And I think I know we've seen it on a federal level, how business minds and leaders can get involved and turn things around for the better. And that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm doing this. I truly am grateful for this opportunity to run for office. I can assure you, there were times in my life where this was not an option on the table. But with the grace of God and with the grace of a lot of people and a beautiful family that has been with me, behind me, supporting me. My beautiful grandmother here tonight, sitting front row. It takes you back a little bit. It makes you think about how important this is. It makes you think about what you're doing and how big of a responsibility this role is. And I am truly grateful to everyone for the opportunity. So thank you.
All right, appreciate that. Lane Carter. Last word, last thoughts.
Last word. Well, first I want to thank y'all for hosting this. I want to thank everybody in attendance for coming and spending their time with us this evening, and everybody that is watching. It's been a pleasure to serve our community, representing District 5 in the San Angelo City Council. And I know it would be a pleasure to serve as your next county judge, to advocate for our citizens, to advocate for our servants, to advocate for those that are on our front line. I've seen issues at the city council that I know we can bring up and help. We advocated for our police department for retention rates and pay. We need to do that for the county judge, at the county judge level, for our sheriff's department and for our jailers. We have workforce problems. We need a plan to establish. We need to look for ways to help better our community. But I want to thank everybody that has supported me in the past and supporting me during this avenue. My mom, Candy, is here, and my wife, Paige. They have been with me to the end. Also, my dad and my stepdad, who are probably watching right now. This is a family unit. It takes a village, to raise a child.
Yep.
It takes a village to better serve our community. Mm-hmm. I look forward to doing that as county judge. I'm a Christian conservative. I thank y'all again. I can't thank y'all more enough than anything possible right now. Thank you.
Guys, it's been great. Thank you for your participation and enlightenment here. It's been a pleasure, and I'm grateful and humbled to be in your presence tonight.
Yanis, I appreciate you taking the time to do this as well.
Sure. I would be remiss, though, if I didn't mention one thing. We lost a champion in Tom Green County yesterday, and if you did not know Tom Davidson, you missed out. He was a quality human being. He was one of those guys, he's an attorney here, who never met a stranger and who took me under his wing like he knew me. He was always kind. He was always professional, and he will be truly missed. And I hope you say a prayer for his family tonight.
To speak to that real quick, we lost two enormous champions in this community over the past few days.
Agreed.
Clayton Wysoon.
Yeah.
I cannot say enough about that man.
Absolutely.
And Tom Davidson, we're going to miss him at the Cactus. He was a Cactus Jim, and he came in my office many days, and we got to conversate, and we got to know each other, and I know I had his support, and I know I had his best wishes in this campaign. He stopped by not too long ago and said, "That means a lot, Todd, because I don't support damn Republicans too often."
I was just going to say.
So I truly appreciated him, and I appreciated getting to sit and visit with him the times that we got to. So thank you for saying that.
You bet. And this is a difficult choice for voters. You've got 3 runoff elections here, 3 really, really, really qualified folks. And I can't thank them enough for being here. I can't thank you enough for being here. Stick with us. We'll make it through. Early voting starts May 16th, ends the 20th, and Election Day is May 24th. And we hope to have the results that night. Not going to guarantee it. On behalf of San Angelo Live and all of my crew here, they do a lot more than I do, and they're much more important than me sitting up here yakking. So thank you all for listening to me. Thank the guys for being here again. God bless you and good night.
27 years ago, I began my law enforcement career right here as a jailer. Now, as the patrol lieutenant for the Tom Green County Sheriff's Office, I have made it my mission to serve our community. That's why I'm running for Justice of the Peace, to use my knowledge and my experience of criminal and civil law to serve the people of Precinct 3. You deserve a JP who understands mental health issues, has experience in records, warrants, and affidavits, along with a proven law enforcement career.
Fair justice you can count on. Stacye Speck for Tom Green County Justice of the Peace Precinct 3.
All right, well, welcome back. That was the wrap, the bow on tonight.
It wasn't a bow, that was the main event.
That was the main event
between
the heavyweights tonight.
That was a Christmas present, right? Todd Coles versus Lane Carter?
Yes, the heavyweight bout between those two who are running for Tom Green County Judge, Mr. Kolls, Mr. Carter. Mm-hmm. Joe, there's a lot to digest from that. Yanis pretty much circled around the tower many a time.
Yantis talked too much. Didn't you think?
He was very insightful.
He talked a lot.
Very insightful.
I mean, I felt like he was, Maverick flying across the control tower. And they kept saying, "Stop, Yantis," and he kept flying around the,
But he offered a lot that we may not know about.
That's right.
So
we didn't know about a lot of that stuff. But anyway, we
yeah.
have him right here.
Yeah,
Yantis.
in fact, Yantis, Mike is hot. If you want to come on in here, Yantis.
Okay.
We'll get in. We'll talk about we'll digest.
First of all, we want to know what office are you running for?
I've had my turn in the barrel. But I love the county, and I obviously I love county government. I just I want to see the right folks in there, and the voters will get this right.
Yeah, definitely. And we saw certainly the county judge candidates go head to head with Lane Carter and Todd Coles. Was there one that, and I'll ask this for both of you tonight. Was there one that impressed y'all the most? Can, if you will, dissect maybe perhaps the winner, or maybe the less fortunate. I'm not going to call them a loser, but who kind of took the cake tonight?
You'll let Yanis go first. Now, the disclaimer is I ran for this race. So.
That's true. As I said, they're both quality guys. They both got in some good hits. This is a contact sport.
Right.
I was glad to see that Lane stood up and asked a question, and took advantage of that, and looked Todd straight in the eye and asked the question. And I appreciate Todd's candid answer and the back and forth that we had. As far as that goes, it's tough. Those guys, they've been doing this a while, and you've got to have the right personality to be a county judge. You have to, and these guys are quality guys. I can't pick a winner.
So which one has the best personality?
Well, they both have their strengths and weaknesses. I mean, there's times when I was sitting there looking at Lane and I said, I want this guy. He's been a city councilman. He's confident. He's young. He's willing to take on anything. And then I would listen to Todd, and Todd with that homespun, I'll take it one day at a time, and with that sort of approach as well. So I don't know yet. I mean, both of them have a unique approach at being county judge. Both of them valid, and you're not gonna go wrong with either one of them.
Yep. Joe, Todd Coles said he's not a politician. He's a business-minded leader. You were in this race with these two gentlemen there. Is there one that maybe you kind of thought, not too bad, kudos?
In politicians, it's all BS. They're both politicians. I mean, let's get to the face. I was being a politician too. They're both politicians. He can be a business-minded leader, for Todd, but he doesn't have the resume that Lane Carter has. I mean, you can compare the two. Todd Coles doesn't have the resume, but that doesn't mean that Todd Coles wouldn't be a good county judge, because Steve Floyd doesn't have the resume that Lane Carter has. I mean, Lane Carter's got 2 bachelor's degrees. That's impressive. Coles leans a lot on his business acumen. I don't know how good a business acumen. If he had a multi-location, business, like a pet stores everywhere, I would say yeah. But I mean, running one jewelry store in the Cactus Hotel, I don't know if that's enough business acumen for it. I don't even know if I had enough business acumen as the founder of San Angelo Live, to run 500 employees and a county with a $65 million budget, So, you got to kind of weigh these things that they say with what is reality. At the same time, Lane, and you can jump in here, Yantis.
Well, yeah. The thing about it is, both of those guys they're not an incumbent. They haven't been a county judge. They don't know what county government is. They didn't when they started this journey. My background is a little different, and I can tell you there are things about being a county judge that are not pleasant.
Right.
And you've got to be tough sometimes. And I think that they're, within the first 10 days, there's going to be some eye-opening decisions that either one of them is going to have to make.
Kind of like George W. Bush had the Chinese trying to shoot down the P-3 Orion, in the first week or two of his presidency in 2000.
Yeah, and that refined by fire, that they're going to sink or swim, is going to happen on January 1st. And that's why I tried to make the point that you're going to be sworn in on January 1st. 10 days later, the legislature is going to meet.
Right.
And if you think there's nothing tougher than what the Texas legislature does to Texas counties, there's nothing harder, because they use 2 words, may or shall. We're running into a legislative session it's all going to be shall. You are going to do this. We are going to cut your revenue.
Right. Well, you think that's going to happen. That's a hypothetical right now. You just think it's going to happen. But of course, they did do it to the school districts back in 2019.
They did it to school districts before that. I mean, I was talking about Robin Hood.
Robin Hood back in the 2000s.
And that bleeds over to cities and counties. And, you know, those decisions are made by the court, the whole court. And we talked to Bill Ford and Shawn Nanny before that. And Bill said it's experience. You know, I got to kind of tell you that kind of experience on that court, when you got a brand new judge coming in, carries some weight.
So are you endorsing Bill Ford?
No. I'm not endorsing anybody.
Well, the entire time, you kind of let him run with the mic. And so I'm just, you know.
Well, and that was what this format was for.
Right.
I wanted you to see the personalities of these guys and gal, and I think you did. I think if we did it a second time, that they would be a little more loose, and I think you would hear more from Ron Perry and Stacye Speck. But you know, we started with them. They normally are at the end of the ticket, the end of the show, the last parting shot or parting thought. But again, there's a choice you got to make. And you know, they both have worked very, very hard. They have their supporters, and Precinct 3 is funny.
Precinct 3 being the precinct where the JPs
where the justices of the peace, those people will decide who they like better and who they want to go with. So
why do you say it's funny?
Well,
do the people up there wear different clothes? Is it like a bunch of Amish?
Doubt that.
They will surprise you, and that was another point I was trying to make, is that's the most rural precinct in the county, with Grape Creek, with what, 10, 12,000 people in that area, Water Valley, Carlsbad, those older communities there, that there's a larger percentage of residents and voters who live outside the city limits than in the other three precincts.
Right. So you don't have a Southland in
You don't
Precinct
have the
3.
Southland and the Santa Rita in Precinct 3.
Right.
That would equate kind of to the Grape Creek part of it. And as a Grape Creek boy, I can tell you that they're independent, and that they're independent thinking, and you'll just have to wait and see election night what they do.
Right.
Well, before we roll the end credits here, I want to kind of get y'all's overall thoughts of who maybe impressed the most tonight, because these are three crucial races involving JP3, Precinct 4 County Commissioner, and County Judge. We'll begin with the JP3 race. Stacye Speck, in this, Mr. Ron Perry. Joe, who impressed you the most on this?
I think Ron Perry did a better job than Stacye Speck tonight. I mean, just at this debate, he seemed to be, I don't know, it seems to he just seemed to be more smooth. You know, when he came out, he didn't come across as being like, you know, in your face kind of thing. I mean, the content of what he said, I mean, it's a JP race.
Right.
So there's not a whole lot of issues where you can, you know, wrap them up.
Yeah, it's hard to say, you know, I'm going to be this kind of a judge. It's funny you say that, because I thought Stacye did a better job from where I was sitting, because the questions were the answers were succinct to the questions and pertinent to the questions, and I think that tonight, on this night, Stacye Speck did a better job. But that's me, and we obviously have a difference of opinion.
Absolutely.
That's why we're here.
Absolutely. Precinct 4 County Commissioner, Joe, it was between Mr. Shawn Nanny and Bill Ford, the incumbent. Who impressed you tonight?
I think Shawn pulled it out tonight. You know, Shawn, my opinion is all Shawn has to do is say it's time for a change, and then he be quiet. You know, because, you know, the anti-incumbency part of the Republican Party is still potent. And he did say that a couple of times. But, you know, I mean, Bill did a good job too, but one of the deals with Bill, he talks too long.
Well, that is a detriment, but also he's very knowledgeable, and he made some very good points, and I would give it to Bill for knowing all of that stuff, and Shawn's answers were more broad, and certainly much more. It would be a more popular answer type thing.
Right.
He's a very, very smart, very good, capable guy. But tonight I heard more specific details from Bill Ford And, I think that Shawn's answers were great. He was, he's well coached, and Steve McLaughlin was sitting there in the audience.
Right.
And McLaughlin's.
So Stephen McLaughlin is the advertising guy for.
He is, and he has a very, very, very good track record of getting people elected, myself included, and. What how he's helped Shawn and Todd both, how he's helped them grow through this process is evident to me.
And last but not least, we'll wrap it up. Give me in 60 seconds who you thought.
We only have 60 seconds.
Yes, I'm giving you 60 seconds each. Who do you think impressed within the county judge race between Mr. Kolls and Mr. Carter tonight?
I think Todd Coles' delivery was a lot better.
He was very distinct.
I thought it was really good. If you believe everything Todd Coles said, he won the thing. But at the same time, I am kind of a biased guy because I endorsed Lane Carter as part of my, at the end of my campaign. So I did endorse Lane Carter. I just, I think Todd's being coached pretty good. I think he's probably been talking to former Judge Mike Brown. I can sense a little bit of that in what he's talking. But at the same time, I just don't, business acumen and one jewelry store, I still can't get over that, to brag about that. At the same time, you put that up against Lane Carter with City Council. However, he did do a good job. I think Todd Coles did a good job tonight. I thought he connected with the audience. I thought that his answers were pretty much spot on. So.
And I'm not going to disagree with that. I think Todd had a good night. I think his answers were what the audience wanted to hear and needed to hear. He answered my questions, looked me in the eye, it was razor thin for me. I think Lane did a good job, and he's got really good, solid ideas. But for tonight, Todd seemed to have a better night.
Yeah, and we've had forums where Todd did terrible, so it's been, we've seen it up and down. I've seen it up and down.
Definitely. So. All right, well, it's been a fun evening, to say the least, involving 3 candidate races, runoff races for Tom Green County Judge, Justice of the Peace Precinct 3, and Tom Green County Commissioner Precinct 4. So a lot to ingest over the next few days or the next few weeks, because early voting, gentlemen, May 16th.
May 16th.
Voting, actual election day, May
24th.
May 24th.
And we hope people stayed on. I hope this production was good for y'all out there.
Sure.
So.
Well, it's like we say for everything, whether it's Cover One, whether it's the political desk, it's been fun, it's been real. For these fine gentlemen, Mr. Joe Hyde, Yanis Green, and myself, Manny Diaz, and for our crew, James Bellini and Matt Trammell. Good night, God bless. This has been the 2022 Tom Green County Republican Runoff Forum. We'll see you next time.